It is time for single best chart, and we can do that with Christopher Grisanti. This chart is so important right now in the zeitgeist that we did it with George Saravelis at Deutsche Bank, and we're going to redo it with a guy that actually invests real money. It's a doom and gloom chart. It is exports is based off the Chinese PMI index. With a financial crisis over to the left, down we go. We got some stability, actually some good news 3 years ago. And then Chris Grisanti, let's blame it on the president, exports from China off the proverbial cliff. Is it a hard landing?
It doesn't have to be, Tom, I don't think. But this gets back to the point we were making earlier in the show where this shows that the Chinese need a trade deal even more than the Americans. So exports, which this chart exactly focuses on, is what's really suffering in China, and it's bringing the whole domestic economy down as well.
It always has been. I mean, their C plus I plus G plus NX is way different than ours.
Sure is.
China experts tell us finally we see legit consumption in China, but it still goes back to those cans that you see driving in from Hong Kong or Shanghai on the Pacific Rim as well. What is the optimal trade policy for Mr. Trump right now?
Well, it's funny. What's optimal long term is probably not what's best for the market. I would pay attention to Robert Lighthizer and make sure that we get a deal that works not just to change the trade deficit, which in the end of the day is not that important, but that gives us intellectual property protections and that gives us access to Chinese markets. That's the single biggest thing that we need to get.
Chris, what do you do with Huawei? Away from Huawei, yesterday we had a pretty ugly batch of tech earnings, and that took the industry with it. And then we have to see whether we can build 5G with or without Huawei.
Well, that's right. And as you noticed today, there's a conference in Spain where Huawei is actually making some inroads into European companies. And we have to be careful of a division between the U.S. and Europe on approaching the Chinese technology issues. And they're real and they're long-term, and that's probably the thorniest issue we have with the trade talks, Francine.
Right. But, Chris, do you follow the technology space specifically? And actually, in Europe, 5G, can it even be built without Huawei?
You know, eventually it certainly can. There's no question, though, that Huawei has, if not the lead, certainly among the best of the technology solutions. And they're pricing it in such a way as to gain market share in all of the developed countries in Europe. So it's a real issue.